What really happened to Tupac Shakur? A man whose words shook the world, whose music ignited movements, and whose life was cut tragically short. How does one of the most influential artists of all time, surrounded by fame, fans, and enemies alike, become a victim of such a violent end, on a busy Las Vegas street, no less? Did the East Coast versus West Coast feud claim its most famous casualty, or was there something even darker at play? Was the man accused of being involved in that fatal scuffle earlier in the night the one who pulled the trigger? Or could it have been someone from Tupac's own circle, someone he trusted? And then there's the question that keeps fans and conspiracy theorists up at night: what if Tupac isn't dead at all? What if the man who so often spoke of escaping his enemies and starting over found a way to vanish, leaving behind a mystery that would only add to his legend? Tonight, we dive deep into the life and unsolved death of Tupac Shakur. A story filled with triumph and tragedy, hope and heartbreak, and questions that, to this day, remain unanswered. Who killed Tupac? And perhaps more hauntingly, why? The rise of a revolutionary. Tupac Amaru Shakur, born June 16, 1971, in East Harlem, New York, was destined for greatness. His childhood, however, was anything but ordinary. His mother, Afeni Shakur, was an active member of the Black Panther Party, a revolutionary movement fighting for civil rights and justice for Black Americans. Tupac grew up surrounded by activism and struggle, a legacy that would shape his voice and vision. But Tupac wasn't just a child of the revolution. He was a dreamer and a poet. As a teenager, he attended the Baltimore School for the Arts, where he studied acting, poetry, and ballet. It was here that he discovered his profound talent for storytelling. "I have something to say," Tupac once remarked, and he would go on to say it in ways the world couldn't ignore. By the early 1990s, Tupac transformed into Tupac, a rap icon whose lyrics painted raw, unflinching portraits of systemic oppression, police brutality, and life in the streets. His music wasn't just entertainment, it was a rallying cry. Songs like Brenda's Got a Baby and Keep Ya Head Up resonated deeply with those living in America's margins. But Tupac's rise wasn't without controversy. As his fame grew, so did his troubles. Arrests, lawsuits, and public feuds began to dominate headlines, painting a picture of a man constantly at odds with the world. Yet, through it all, Tupac's charisma and lyrical genius never waned. East versus West, the feud that shook hip-hop. By the mid-1990s, Tupac had become the face of Death Row Records, the West Coast powerhouse led by the notorious Suge Knight. But fame came at a cost. Tupac found himself embroiled in one of the most infamous feuds in music history, the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry. The conflict was partly rooted in business competition between the two coasts' dominant rap labels. Death Row Records on the West Coast and Bad Boy Records on the East Coast were both vying for supremacy in a rapidly growing industry. But what began as a business rivalry soon turned deeply personal, with Tupac at the center of the storm. Tensions exploded when, in 1994, Tupac was ambushed, shot, and robbed at Quad Recording Studios in New York City. Tupac publicly accused Sean Diddy Combs and the Notorious B.I.G. of having knowledge of or involvement in the attack, a claim they vehemently denied. The incident marked the beginning of an all-out war of words and music, with diss tracks flying back and forth. Tupac's Hit 'Em Up became one of the most infamous diss tracks in hip-hop history, filled with venomous accusations and taunts aimed at Biggie, Diddy, and the entire East Coast rap scene. The song's aggressive tone and explicit lyrics exemplified how deeply personal and bitter the feud had become. Meanwhile, the media played a significant role in fueling the fire. Headlines sensationalized every insult and altercation, creating an atmosphere of hostility that extended far beyond the artists themselves. Fans began to take sides, and the rivalry grew into a cultural phenomenon, pitting entire regions against one another. But some have argued that the feud wasn't entirely organic. There are theories that record labels and media outlets intentionally stoked the flames for financial gain. The conflict generated massive publicity, album sales soared, and hip-hop's popularity reached new heights. For Tupac, however, the rivalry was more than just a marketing ploy, it was deeply personal. He saw himself as a soldier fighting not just for the West Coast but for his own survival and legacy. As the feud escalated, so did the danger. Public altercations, threats, and even violence became commonplace. It was no longer just about music, it was about power, pride, and vengeance. Tupac's defiant attitude and outspoken nature made him a lightning rod for controversy, and the feud stakes grew higher with each passing day. The night of September 7, 1996. Las Vegas, Nevada. September 7, 1996. The air was electric as fans poured into the MGM Grand to witness a highly anticipated boxing match featuring Mike Tyson. Among the crowd was Tupac Shakur, accompanied by Suge Knight, the controversial CEO of Death Row Records. This was not just another night out, it was a spectacle, a convergence of fame, power, and danger. After Tyson's swift victory, an altercation erupted in the hotel lobby. Tupac and his entourage crossed paths with Orlando Anderson, a suspected Crips gang member who had allegedly been involved in a prior robbery of a Death Row affiliate. Surveillance footage captured the chaotic scuffle as punches were thrown and security struggled to intervene. Tensions were palpable, and the altercation seemed to foreshadow the violence that would soon follow. Later that evening, Tupac and Suge left the hotel in a black BMW. They were heading to Club 662, a Death Row-owned venue, for an after-party. The atmosphere in the car was reportedly celebratory. Tupac even danced in his seat to a song playing on the radio. However, the celebratory mood would soon turn deadly. At approximately 11:15 p.m., as the car stopped at a red light on Flamingo Road, a white Cadillac pulled up on the passenger side. Suddenly, gunfire erupted. Tupac was struck 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. Suge Knight sustained minor injuries from shrapnel, but he managed to drive the bullet-riddled car a short distance before stopping and calling for help. Paramedics arrived and rushed Tupac to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. He underwent multiple surgeries and was placed on life support. For 6 agonizing days, fans, friends, and family waited for news, holding on to hope that the indomitable rapper would pull through. However, on September 13, 1996, Tupac succumbed to his injuries. He was just 25 years old. The immediate aftermath of the shooting was chaotic. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department launched an investigation, but it was hampered by a lack of cooperation from witnesses. Many of those present, either out of fear or loyalty to street codes, refused to come forward with information. Rumors and speculation began to swirl almost immediately, feeding a media frenzy. Why was Tupac targeted that night? Was it a random act of violence, or was it premeditated? Some speculated that the fight with Orlando Anderson earlier in the evening was the catalyst, with Anderson seeking swift and deadly revenge. Others believed the shooting was tied to the East Coast versus West Coast feud that had engulfed the hip-hop world. Still, others pointed to Suge Knight, suggesting that internal tensions within Death Row Records could have played a role. As the days turned into weeks and then months, frustration grew over the lack of progress in solving the case. Despite occurring on a busy street with numerous witnesses, the murder of Tupac Shakur remained, and still remains, unsolved. This glaring lack of resolution has only fueled the myriad conspiracy theories surrounding his death, leaving fans and the world to grapple with unanswered questions. The night of September 7, 1996, marked the tragic end of Tupac's extraordinary life. It was a night that not only silenced one of the most influential voices in music but also symbolized the volatile intersection of fame, violence, and systemic failure. The echoes of that night continue to resonate, haunting a generation that lost one of its brightest stars too soon. Who killed Tupac? It's a question that has haunted fans, investigators, and conspiracy theorists for decades. Some believe Orlando Anderson was the triggerman, acting in retaliation for the earlier altercation at the MGM Grand. Anderson denied involvement and was never charged. He died in a gang-related shooting in 1998, taking his secrets to the grave. Others point fingers at Suge Knight. Could the death row mogul have orchestrated Tupac's murder? Some speculate that Tupac planned to leave death row records, a move that might have threatened Suge's empire. Suge himself was injured in the shooting but has consistently denied any involvement. Then there's the theory that the East Coast versus West Coast feud was to blame. Could rivals from Bad Boy Records have orchestrated the attack? While this theory dominated headlines, no concrete evidence has ever linked Diddy or Biggie to the crime. Perhaps the most intriguing theory is that Tupac faked his own death. Fans point to alleged sightings, cryptic lyrics, and Tupac's fascination with Machiavelli, the Italian philosopher who wrote about faking one's death to fool enemies. Could Tupac still be alive, living in exile? Despite numerous investigations, documentaries, and books, Tupac's murder remains unsolved. Some say it's a case of justice denied. Others believe it's a testament to the systemic corruption and indifference that Tupac himself often rapped about.